Hello guys, in this video we are going to see all the Java concepts that you need to clear CPA, that is Camera Proctored Assessment of TCS. In this video we are going to see what are variables and how to declare them, and we are going to see about access modifiers, arrays, classes and objects, and constructors, getters and setters, arrays of objects, methods or functions, and the static keyword, and the return type of a method. So let's get started. Variable. A variable is simply a container which holds a value. You can say variable is a name of memory location. Variable is always assigned with the data type. Variable can be of the type byte, integer, float, double, or string. For example, you can see here we are assigning a value 10 of the type integer to a variable named number. Variable is simply a name which is given to a memory location in a computer so that we can access that value later. In here, we are storing a value 10 in memory location inside a computer, somewhere in a computer. Next time when you want to access that, let's say if you want to access that value, you can't simply say computer fetch me the value. Computer will get confused. So you first need to, what you are doing is you're storing a value 10 in a memory location and giving it a name number. So when you need the value for the next time, you'll simply say, hey computer, give me the value which is stored in the memory location which has the name number. So computer will go to the memory location and see anywhere it has the name called number, and it will return you the value 10. Okay, now let's define two variables. I'll define a variable of the type string. We'll call it as first name, and we'll assign it a value John. Okay, now we are storing a value that is a string called John in the memory location and naming that memory location as first name. So whenever we tell the computer to fetch us the value which is present in the memory location named first name, it will give us the value John. Now we can verify that. So let's see, system dot out dot println. We are simply printing the value which is present in the memory location first name. Okay, we can run this program. We simply run my method. You can see it is returning John. Let's make our output a little prettier. First name is, so to concatenate strings or variable and a string, we are using plus operator here. Okay, so now if we run the program, we'll get the output, this pretty output called first name is John. What basically the computer is doing is it is going and searching in the memory location which has the name first name and returning us the value which is present in that memory location. So if we change this value to John to Bob, if we run the program again, now that value will be overwritten by Bob. So let's see, let us declare one more variable, string last name is equal to Ryan. Okay, we can simply put here last name is, we have to put this concatenation operator, then you can specify last name and put a and symbol here. Now if you run the program, we'll get the value, we'll get the output. First name is Bob and last name is Ryan. Okay, so this was about variables. Now let's see what are access modifiers. Access modifiers. The access modifiers in Java specifies the scope. Okay, access modifiers available are private, public, and protected. For example, here you can see a variable called name, which is of type string, is declared as private. So it can be accessible only inside the class, that is, only by the methods which are present inside that class. We're going to see access modifiers in action when we'll talk about getters and setters. Okay, arrays. An array is a collection of items where the items are stored in continuous memory locations. We already saw variables. A variable is used to store a single value. But what if you want to store a list of values? That is, if you want to store a list of names, then you need arrays. Arrays are used to store a list of elements which is of same data type. For example, you can see here we have declared an array named numbers which is of type integers. It means all the elements in array called numbers are of type integer, and this array is of size 5. That means it can hold to the max 5 elements and starting from the index 0. Let's see arrays in action. I will comment out the code which I had written earlier. Now we will create an array of strings where we'll store a list of names. So to create an array, we have to first specify its type. So this array is going to be of type string. We'll name this array as names. For now, let's assign the values directly. Let's say Alice and Bob. We can assign as many values we want. So if you want to print the list of names, we can simply write a for loop for int I is equal to 0, I is less than, is equal to 0, I is less than names dot length. The length property always gives the length of the array. That is, in this case I have specified names, so it will give me the length of names as 2 and I++, and we'll use system dot out dot println to print the result. Here I'll specify names of I. So here I specifies the index. We can access the elements of array by using its index. So Alice will be present in the index names of 0, and Bob will be in the index names of 1. So we'll just run the program. You can see, yes, Alice and Bob. We can also create an array in another way, like we can write new string and we can specify the size here. For now I'll specify it as 2, and we'll assign names of 0 is equal to Alice and names of 1 is equal to Bob. If we run the program again, we'll get the same output. So this was about arrays. Next we are going to see about classes and objects. Classes and objects. Class is a template or a blueprint from which objects are created. Basically, a class is a blueprint. For example, you can see here class student, string name and int age. Here we are creating a blueprint for a student. That is, every student will be having a name and an age. So instead of writing the code again and again for each student, we'll just create a template called student, that is by using class, and we will create an instance of it whenever we want to create a new student. So object is an instance of class. You can see here we have created two objects from the class student by specifying new student. The keyword new is used to create a new instance. Now let's see the code. To create a class, we just have to write the keyword class followed by the class name, that is student, and inside the class we can specify the properties. Here I'll specify two properties, string name and int age. This was about class. In the upcoming videos we are going to create objects from this class. Constructors. Constructors is used to initialize values. It is called when an instance of a class is created. That is, here we have created a constructor called student. It takes two parameters, name and age, and initializes the received values to the name and age of the current class. This keyword refers to the current class scope. That is, it represents the current class that is being used. That is, it represents the current class. Now let's jump to the code. Here we have already created a class called student with the properties name and age. Now we'll create a constructor student. In Java, the constructor name should be the same as the class name, that is student in our case. So it will take two parameters. One is of type string, that is name, and another parameter is age, that is of type integer. Now we will assign the received parameters to the respective properties. This dot name equal to name and this dot age equal to age. Now we will create an object from the class which we just created. That is, first we have to specify the class name followed by the object name that we want to create. I will name it as student1, then followed by the new keyword followed by the class name. Here we have to pass two values. First one is name, I will pass Bob, and second one is age, that is I will pass 20. Now we can create as many objects from this class, from the student class we want. For now I'll create just one object, that is student1, and we can access the values of the properties of the object by using dot operator. That is, I will use system.out.println. Now I will write student1 dot name. This will give me the name Bob. Similarly, I will type system.out.println and I'll specify the object name followed by the property name. This will give me the value 20. Similarly, we can create as many students as we want, and we can access them by using the object name. I will run the program. You can see student1.name gave us the value Bob. Student1.age gave us the value 20. What actually happening here is, when we are creating an object, we are passing these two values, right? Bob and 20. These two values are being received by the constructor. Name and age. Here Bob and 21 are being received. And these age, name and age, are being set to these properties, name and age. I had told you about access modifiers. Now we'll see how the access modifiers will affect our code. If I just specify this string before string, if I make it as private, right? Now you can see here the name turned into red. This is because since I made the property name as private, we can't access it anymore. Only the methods inside this class can access the property. So in order to access this private property, we need to create getters and setters. Next we'll say about getters and setters. Getters and setters are methods used to protect your data and make the code more secure. Getters are used to retrieve the values of the variables, and setters are used to set the values to the variables. In this example, you can see we have created a getter called getAge and we have created a setter called setAge. GetAge returns the value of the age and setAge sets the value of the age. Here, int specify the return type of the getter, and setter do not have any return type. The return type of setters are always void, and the setters receives a parameter and sets the value which they receives to the corresponding property. The return type of the getter depends on the type of the value which is being returned. This is the code which we had written earlier. Now I'll create getters for name and age. To create a getter, first we have to specify the return type, that is string, followed by the name of the getter. I will specify it as get name, and the getter will return the value of the name. Similarly, now we will make the getter public so that it can be accessed from outside the class. I'll create one more getter of which will be having the return type int, and we'll name it as get age, and it will return the age. Now we have created getters. Now we'll create the setters. To create a setter, we will specify the return type as void, followed by the setter name. We'll name it as set name, and the setter will receive a parameter of type string, and we'll name it as name. We'll make the setter also public, and setter will simply set the value, that is this dot name equal to name. We will create another setter for age. Public will specify void, then set age, then we'll receive parameter called age, then we'll simply set this dot age equal to age. Now instead of using name, we can specify the getter get name. It will return the value Bob, and instead of specifying age, we'll first we'll make the age as private. Now we're getting error here, so we'll replace the age by get age. Now if we run the program, we'll get the same output, but we are not making use of setters here, so we will make use of setters now. We'll simply set the student name to from Bob to Bob Ryan, and we will set the student age to 21. So we'll make it as 25 because we have initially assumed it as 20. So now if we run the program, we'll get the output as Bob Ryan and 25. These setters replace the value set name, the setter set name replace the value of Bob by Bob Ryan, and the setter set age replace the value of age, which was 20, by 25. So this was about getters and setters. Next we'll see about how to create an array of objects. Array of objects. So as I have already mentioned, an array is a collection of items where the items are stored in continuous memory locations. Here, in case of array of objects, it is an array where all the elements are objects. Okay, and usually all the objects belong to the same class. For example, here we have created a object array and we have named it as student object array. We have created the array by using new keyword, and we have specified the size as 4, so it can contain to the max 4 student objects. Okay, so first I'll comment this code. Now I'll create one more student object by specifying student 2 equals new student, and we'll specify name as Alice and age as 25. Okay, now to store these two objects in an array, we have to simply write student of the type array, then we have to name the array. We'll name it as students array, and for now we'll directly assign the values to student 1, student 2. Now this student array will contain two objects, just student 1 and student 2. Student 1 will be stored at the index students array of 0, and student 2 will be stored at the index students array of 1. We can verify it by printing the names by iterating through the array student array. Okay, so we'll type for int I is equal to 0, I is less than student array dot length I plus plus, and now we'll print system dot out dot println, and we'll specify the index by using students array of I dot getName. This for loop will iterate through the students array and print name of each student. First it will print Bob, then it will print Alice. So let's run the program. We can also create a student array by using new keyword. So now let's delete this and write new student, and here I'll specify size. That means how many student objects I want to store. I'll write here 2. Okay, and we'll assign students array of 0 is equal to student 1, and student array of 1 is equal to student 2. Here you can clearly see the index, that at 0th index we have student 1 and at first index we have student 2. Now we'll run the program. Again, we are getting the same result, Bob and Alice. So this was about array of objects. Next, we are going to see about methods or functions. Methods or functions. A function or a method is a group of reusable code which can be called anywhere in your program. It is a set of lines aimed at performing a specific task. Basically, it means that a function or method, it's a set of lines of code which is aimed at performing a particular task. For example, you can see the function add here. It is taking two parameters a and b, and it is aimed at performing a single task, that is returning the sum by adding the numbers which it received. And as you might have already guessed, a function can receive parameters and it can also return a value. So first of all, I'll delete this code and I will create a function called greet student here. Okay, so first I'll write static void. Void is a return type, that means function will not return anything. We are using word static here. We'll see in the next videos why we are using the word static. I'll give the name greet student to the function, and this function will take one parameter that is of type string and will name it as name. So it will simply print hello followed by the student name, whatever it received from here. So we have written a simple function here which will take name as the argument, and it will simply greet the student by saying hello followed by the student name. Now we have written greet student function once. The specialty of functions is that we can call it any number of times. For example, now instead of writing system.out.println, we'll simply call the function greet student here, and we will pass student name as the argument. So this greet student function will take student name from here, and it will simply output hello followed by the student name which it received. Now let's run the code. You can see the output here. It's printing hello Bob and hello Alice. So this was about functions. Next we'll see about return type of the functions. Return type of a method or return type of a function specifies the type of the value being returned by the function or that method. For example, you can see here we have created a function called add, and we have specified the return type as integer. That is because this function will simply add the two numbers which it receives through a and b, then it will return an integer. So we have mentioned the type as integer. We will always specify the return type before the function name. You can see here we have already worked with functions. That is, getters and setters are also functions. You can see the getter get name. It is returning the value of type string. You can see the getter get age. It is returning a value of type integer. And the setters are of the type void because the setters will not return any values. Next we will see about static keyword. The static keyword in Java is mainly used for memory management. The static keyword is used to share the same variable or method of a given class. So users can apply the static keyword to any variable or to any method or to any blocks. For example, you can see here we have declared a variable called number which is of type integer static. Now that means if you change the value of number anywhere in the program, it will be affected globally. It means if you change the value of the number in one place, it will affect the value of the number in all the other places. Let's see the code. If you remember, when creating a function called greetStudent, we declare that function as static. This static keyword means this function is common to every class. So we are able to access the function without creating the instance of the class. You can see here we are directly calling greetStudent and we are passing the argument. So this was about static keyword. Now we will see about how to take input from the console. If you want to accept the input from the user, that is from the console, first you have to import scanner. That is by typing import followed by java.util.scanner. Once you import the scanner, you have to create an instance of the scanner. That is by typing scanner sc is equal to sc is the name which I am giving to the scanner so that it can be referenced further. New scanner, and you have to specify that we want to take input from the system, so system.in. Now if you want to take a string as an input, you have to specify the input type as string. First I will write a message saying enter your name. Now for taking string as input, simply write string and then what name we want to give to reference that input. That is, I'll give it as name, and we have to specify the scanner reference. Usually if you use next, it won't accept the string which is separated by spaces, so we can use next line to accept a string which contains space. Then we'll simply print hello, then the name. Now if you run the program, you can see the message here, enter your name, and it is waiting for user's input. So I'll specify Bob Ryan and I'll hit enter. Now you can see here it is saying hello Bob Ryan. This is how you take a string. If you want to take an integer as input, then it's very simple. I'll print a message called enter your age, and to take integer as input, I'll specify the data type as integer and I'll specify variable name as age and scanner reference followed by next int. Now I'll concatenate the message your age is variable age. Now if you run the program again, you can see it's waiting for the name. So I'll enter the name followed including spaces and I'll enter age as 20. Now if you press enter, you can see here hello Bob Ryan, your age is 20. You can put a space here so that the output looks good. So we'll type Bob Ryan and age is 20. Now you can see here there's a space and it says hello Bob Ryan, your age is 20. So this was about taking input from the user. So these are the basic concepts which you'll need while writing CPA exam of TCS. If you know all these concepts, you can definitely write the exam easily without any confusion and you can pass the exam. I've also created the solutions for some of the CPA questions, which includes the detailed explanation of how you are supposed to write the program and how can you write the program more efficiently. I'll give the link in the description. to the solution Java solution videos, and thank you for watching this video.